everyone! Today I'm going to be sharing with you some brand new stuff from the brand Wet n Wild. Wet n Wild is one of my all-time favorite drugstore brands, hands down, probably my #1 favorite drugstore brand, to be honest with you, simply because of the quality and the price are both completely on point. I think they are one of the most inexpensive brands, maybe tied with e.l.f. in the drugstore, and the quality is just off the charts. As you know, I love their liquid lipsticks, their megaglo lipsticks, their blushes, eyeshadows. They have a lot of limited edition stuff they come out with. It's really great, and I just really love Wet n Wild. Not to say that they've never disappointed me, but 9 times out of 10 their products are just wonderful. So I was at the drugstore the other day and I noticed a bunch of brand new items from Wet n Wild. I'm wearing all of the things today, so I'm just going to share with you my thoughts on these brand new products. One more quick note that I wanted to make before jumping into my review and showing you clips of me applying these products is about the packaging. The packaging is really hard to open on the ones that have like a lid like this that clasp. I can't get it by myself. So I've been using these products for 2 days now. Today is the second day I've applied them, and every single time I use them, I have to use a clip to open them. Even yesterday, before I had nail polish on, I couldn't even get it, and now today I didn't even want to try with my nail polish on. So you basically have to use a tool to get them open, and it's not just this one. It is all of these products are nearly impossible to open. So I just wanted to make that note. Be prepared for that if you do choose to purchase these. So I'm going to start with concealer, and I am wearing their concealer today. I picked it up in 2 shades. I have Posing Nude and a Happy Medium. These are the only 2 shades that I saw at the store. I don't know if there are more. If you saw more, leave in the comments below, so if people are looking for other colors, they can find them. But these are both, you know, probably too light for my normal skin tone, but good for highlighting. And I actually used the one called a Happy Medium today. These are twist up concealers with little brushes on the ends. So they are really good for under eye highlighting and other areas that you want to highlight. It's a very liquidy concealer, so keep that in mind. What I did with the concealer and the 2 contour palettes was I actually used them on one half of my face, and then I used my normal everyday go-to products on the other half of my face. So on the left half of my face is Wet n Wild, the other half is my everyday products, just for concealer and contour, and then everything else is the same. So like I use the blush on both sides, I use the highlighter on both sides, lipstick obviously, the brow product on both sides. The only thing I switched up was these, just because for me that was a really good way to judge what I thought of them, rather than like using it one day and using different ones the next day. Just to do half and half for me was like the best way to clearly see a difference. So let's start with the concealer. So I applied this concealer on my under eyes like I always do, and I used my Maybelline FitMe on the other side. And I found that this concealer, the first thing to note is because of the way it dispenses, you have very little control over how much comes out. With the Maybelline concealer, it's on a doe foot applicator, so you really can control how much you have, whereas on here, it just kind of comes out on the brush, and you have to pretty much use what's there. I got a lot more concealer on my left eye than I had intended to, just because of that fact, so that's something to keep in mind. I'm looking at my under eyes and I feel like they both look pretty comparable. You guys let me know what you think, but I'm liking it so far. I don't feel like it's creasing. I don't feel like it is disappearing like some under eye concealers tend to do. I feel like they are both doing a really good job, and I do apply my liquid concealer and let it sit for maybe 20 to 30 seconds before I blend it out, just to make sure that I am getting the best coverage possible. I kind of give it a chance to absorb into the skin and almost thicken a little bit as well. I do the same with my eye primer. So just a fact about me. So after I applied my concealer, I blended it out with the Beauty Blender. Then I went in with my yellow under eye setting / highlighting powder. For the right side, I used the powder from my Lorac Pro Contour Palette, the yellow highlight. And for the left side, I used the yellow highlight from the Wet n Wild palette, Caramel Toffee. And I actually have to say that I prefer the Wet n Wild one a little bit more. at least for now. One of the main reasons is because I can get my whole brush completely coated in this shade, whereas in the Lorac shade, you just have a smaller square and it's harder to get your brush completely covered, if you know what I mean. And I like a good amount of highlight. I feel like this side is a little bit brighter than this side. You guys let me know what you think again. So needless to say, I'm going to be recommending this one. So after I set my under eyes, I went in with a little bit of more of a neutral highlight for other areas of my face that I highlight, particularly in my jawline area right under my contour, and I go in with more of a beige highlight. So I went in with the beige highlight from my Lorac Pro palette on the right side, and on the left side I went in with the beige highlight shade from the Wet n Wild palette Dulce de Leche. And I just apply that, like I said, right along the jawbone, right under where I want my contour to be, to kind of make that area pop a little bit. It'll make my contour pop, and it makes me have sort of a stronger jawline as well. In regards to this powder, I did feel like the Lorac one was a little bit more buildable. I felt like this one was a little bit more sheer, but it's hard to tell. I do like this one a lot. I love it's very, very finely milled and very soft, which is nice. It's just that the Lorac Pro powders are like unusually soft. Like they are extremely soft and powdery, whereas the Wet n Wild ones are probably like your average powdery soft. And I would say that of all the Wet n Wild products I've tried, these are like up there with like the best powder quality. So after I finished highlighting, I went in for contour, and I start with a cool sort of a shadow shade for contouring my cheekbones. For the right side, I used the medium shade in the Lorac Pro contour palette, and for the left side, I used the Dulce de Leche contour or bronzer shade in the Wet n Wild palette. I found these very, very comparable. Like I felt like they were both very easy to blend out, and I felt like the Wet n Wild one blended out really well. I really like the shade. I think it matches well. It looks like a shadowy shade. It's perfect for contouring. So I really enjoyed that, and I felt like it was very easy to blend out, almost easier. Once again, almost easier than the Lorac Pro palette, because the Pro palette is so soft that it almost sinks into the skin before you can even blend it out. So I really liked the Wet n Wild version very much. And then the last half and half step is my warm bronzer. I almost said my warm bronzering. I don't think that's correct. So for the last step, I use a warm bronzer to bronze up the outer portions of my face. For this one, I actually used a bronzer from a different palette, from the Too Faced Cocoa Contour palette. And I used the dark cocoa shade to just warm up the edges of my face, and literally just like on top of my forehead and all the way around, and then under my jawline as well. And then for Wet n Wild, I used the warm bronzer shade from the Caramel Toffee palette to do the same thing. And I felt like this is a really great bronzer shade. It wasn't too red or orange for my skin tone. It was perfect for warming up my face. I do think it would be a little bit too warm for contouring, which is why I didn't contour with it, but I did use it to warm up my face, and it was perfect for that. Before I move on to the next steps, overall, I would say these two are an absolute must. If you highlight and contour your face regularly, these are absolute musts. Or even if you want to get into highlighting and contouring your face and you don't know where to start and you don't know, which palettes to buy or whatever, these are perfect. If I had to pick one, I don't think I can, honestly, because if I had to pick like one, my favorite one of this palette is this shade, and my favorite one of this palette is this shade. So if they had put those two together, I would say get that one. But either way, like you saw, I did use all 4 shades today on my face, and it worked out great. So these are definite yeses. A+, Wet n Wild. For the concealers, I would give these a B, or maybe a B+. I mean, they're real nice. I love the applicator concept. I just think that a little bit too much product comes out, so I don't give them an A, but I do really like them. The price is right, and I think that you can get a good under eye conceal going with these. And I also, yesterday, I didn't do much concealer highlighting today, but yesterday I did use them on like my nose and my forehead and stuff, and it worked fairly well for that as well. I think it works best for under eyes, but other areas it can be made to work as well. They reformulated their blushes apparently. I owned all of their old formulation of blushes, so I didn't pick up any of the shades that I already owned, but I did pick up this new shade which is called Rosé Champagne, which reminds me of the Wet n Wild by Fergie Rosé Champagne Glow like highlighter brick that had like the strips in it, but this doesn't have strips. This is a shimmery, I would call it fairly neutral pink blush with a lot of shimmer in it. This blush is extremely shimmery, so I made the mistake yesterday of putting it on the apples of my cheeks, and I will never be doing that again because this is right where I have pores, and it made the pores pop out. So just a word of advice, I suggest not putting it anywhere you have pores because it is very shimmery. But today I just kind of used it over here to kind of warm everything up and add a little bit of blush, and I really do like it. I love neutral blushes that have shimmer in them for kind of a one step if you're not in the mood to highlight or you don't have time or something. These are really nice for just getting that complete like blushed, flushed look on your cheeks and also a little bit of shimmer. So I do really like this one. I don't know that it will be an everyday blush for me, but I do think that it is nice. If I had to give this a grade, I would probably give it a A-. Okay, moving on to highlighter. This highlighter palette is really special. I definitely recommend this. Before I even like get into the review, I just really recommend it. The number one reason that I like it is that you can use all of these shades separately. It's a little bit challenging because they are in a palette together, but it is possible. I just used a fan brush, and today I am just wearing this outer shade here. It's sort of a champagne gold shade almost. So beautiful. It's so beautiful. So I used that, and I just used a light fan brush, and I fanned it over the sort of tops of my cheekbones, right over where I had applied the blush, and I thought it just looked fantastic. I love how it turned out. And so if you use a brush like this, or even a brush like this is by e.l.f., this one's by Real Techniques, you can get in there in that small strip and get one shade at a time. I didn't try it mixed together because I don't even want to mess it up, because I just love these four shades on their own. I've swatched them all. They're so pigmented, they're so beautiful, they're just to die for. They're just amazing. Maybe Wet n Wild would want to consider putting these in like a palette of like four, like dividing this into four and having four shades, you know, so that they were more separated. Wet n Wild, you might want to consider that, but until then, this is a really nice palette. I really definitely recommend it. You get four highlighter shades in there, and they are all beautiful. So I would give this a solid A, not an A+, just because it's gonna get a little tricky to get in there and get all the shades, but it's still beautiful. And once you get to a point where you can't get them separated, then you can just mix it all together and it'll still be beautiful, I am sure. So solid A. Okay, next we have the Brow Mascara. This is in the shade Nothing But Bru-Nette. This one so far I like. As you guys know, my brows are pretty much black. The hair on my brows are pretty much black. My actual hair is really like a dark brown with a red tint to it almost. In the sun you can see it more, but so my hair on my brows is pretty much straight black, and this actually lightened them, which is kind of nice. I kind of like that because sometimes black can be just a little bit too harsh on the eyebrows, you know, and I never want to use any black products on there because it makes it look even more harsh. So I like a brown product. This is probably the lightest brown I've ever tried. Aside from the color, I really do like it so far. The wand is nice and small. It's actually a little bit bigger than some other wands, like the Benefit Gimme Brow I was using for a while, and this wand is a little bit bigger than that, which makes it a little bit more difficult to work with. If you have smaller brows than me, you might have trouble working with this, so that's something to keep in mind. But it is a great formula. It does dry matte. It almost looks like, in my opinion, like I have powder on my eyebrows, which I don't. The only thing I used was this. So I love how it's drying and how it's making my eyebrows look. And another thing is that I noticed that I was able to kind of fill in the bald spots with this, which is something that I look for in an eyebrow product. I really look for like a one-step product that I can shape and hold and fill in the bald spots all at once, and this really did work for that. So I would give this an A, definitely. So next I have the Wet n Wild Velvet Matte Lip Colors. These are lip pencils. They roll up. The two shades I have are Hickory Smoked and Charred Cherry. I'm wearing Hickory Smoked today, and I quite like it. It is a bit sheer, which is just something to note, but I kind of like that, especially for everyday wear. It can be kind of nice. And Charred Cherry is a very, very bright, so that's more for special occasions, I think, or when you're feeling bold. But either way, these are both nice products. Not my favorite. I still prefer the Wet n Wild Mega Lash lipsticks over these, but these are nice. Then the last product I have to talk about is their Photo Focus Setting Spray. There are 1.52 ounces in here, so it's fairly small, but then again, you know, you're paying drugstore prices and it's a nice size if you want to test it out and see if you like it. This does have alcohol in it, as I mentioned before, so if your skin is sensitive to that, you might not like it. I don't mind it. I kind of like that it adds a little bit more of a mattifying element to it with the alcohol in it so far, but it's probably not something I would use every day. The spray is pretty fine. It's comparable to the L'Oreal Infallible Setting Spray quality-wise as well, so if you're looking for a cheaper alternative, whereas the L'Oreal one is actually a cheaper alternative to a lot of high-end ones, this one would be a cheaper alternative to that L'Oreal one because it's still, I want to say, over $10. So this one is definitely, so far I really like it. I really do. If I had to give these lip pencils a grade, I would probably give them a B. And if I had to give this guy a grade, I would give it an A-. Alright guys, that is it for my Wet n Wild review. I hope you enjoyed it. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it so that other people can find it as well. Leave a comment letting me know what product you're most interested in trying by Wet n Wild, or if you've tried these, let me know what you've tried and what you thought of them. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you guys, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye!